So welcome to HiNZ 2018, and today I'm talking to Dave Howden, and David is head of cloud at Umbrellar, based in Auckland. All right. So Dave, I sat in on the presentation today that you and Lloyd gave on hybrid cloud and health, and we know that's where it's heading. We know the direction it's heading. I think some people have to be convinced, and I think you're working in the private sector, and there's an awful lot of us that don't give credit to how much is actually happening in the private sector in health. So I thought it was really encouraging and interesting to hear what you're doing with the Mercy Ascot Hospital Group and the Radiology Group. And you talked about a number of stages of working towards cloud services, and perhaps you can give us some of the highlights of what those were.
So today was really interesting for us, and Lloyd gave us the opportunity to work with him on this presentation. And we actually, me and my team, we kind of set a joint challenge between us and Mercy and said, look, we're happy to come and support you, no problem, but we actually need to show something that's tangible. The vision that Lloyd has for digital transformation inside health is monstrous in terms of where he wants to get to. And we said, look, we can do something that's really quite cool here. Let's actually take where you're at, and we'll take a load of your clinical data, we'll anonymize it, we'll apply security practice to it, and we'll actually deliver some output. And for a business that hasn't fully transformed yet at Mercy, and they're on that journey, but actually to get in and do a project in 3 weeks to showcase it here was kind of our mission. And that's the capability and power that the partnership between Mercy Radiology, Mercy Ascot Hospitals, and us has created, is that ability to actually think outside of the constraints of what you have inside your organization and go, no, with the right people at the table, we can execute. And that is the hybrid model that's been brought in. You mentioned your point, hybrid being the future. Hybrid is part of the story, but it's part of a capability, right? And having the right tools in your kit bag to call on when you need to get to an outcome, and knowing that part of your organization can deliver it from an IP perspective, but actually you do need the right partners at the table to enable it as quickly as possible to get these projects delivered in a timely manner. And knowing that quite a lot of IT projects have quite a big delivery window just because of the stereotype of an IT project. That's actually not the way of Agile and the way that projects are delivered in terms of quickly iterating things to get to an outcome, or the first version of an outcome. So we were pretty pleased with where we got to in that 3 weeks, and the feedback that we've had from other clinicians that have seen our work has been pretty astounding. So it's been great to be invited and great to deliver and great to showcase what we can do in such a short period of time.
Yeah, we saw it very briefly in your paper this morning, and you said that it'll be on show on the stand.
It has been, yeah.
So it's effectively it's business intelligence. And using that in a health application.
Yeah, that's right. And when we talk about cloud, the first place people's minds go to is almost the rougher end of the industry, which is infrastructure, storage, networking, compute. It's what IT have known to have done for the last 15, 20 years. And we have actually showed an example of it's not related to infrastructure, it's not related to the stuff that pops to people's minds. We've gone straight to the other end of the spectrum, the more innovative end, taken information, ran transformational analytical processes over top of it, and produced Power BI, business intelligence outputs. All those words kind of summate, though, into the outcome of, I can now look at my historical data and gain insights on where to place my next MRI machine, what my revenues are going to be like for the next 24 months, where referrers are coming from, where I need to put my next practice. That's the business insight that technology only helps get to. You need the data, need the smart people, and then need to understand and read the output. So it's all just part of one piece of what the partner ecosystem that we create with Lloyd and Mercy brings together.
So what were the sources, you talked about the sources of this 3-week BI project, because it wasn't just clinical data, but what were the sources that you used to compile that result? So
fascinating, actually, because it's a good point. We speak a lot to clients around collection of data, but actually data exists openly, freely across many institutions that publish it. So we actually started with census data, which looked at population demographic, wealth demographic, and regional trends. Also weather correlations as well, different periods of the year. So when it's colder, more radiology happens because people break more bones, and layering all of that on top and going, okay, so how can we justify that we need more resource in winter because of the winter in 2016 was less aggressive, therefore there were less patients coming through, and how can we predict that going to the future? So you actually start with a purchased data set effectively from external sources, and then bring in your own IP, which is your own data. So we took clinical data, which actually wasn't medical patient records. It was the utilization of all of the scanning equipment across all of the radiology platforms, and started with that, layered on statistical data from the census, and then looked at what else would help and enrich that data set. And then we started looking at geolocations and postcodes and suburb divisions and wealth demographics, and then looking at where the affluent go versus different parts of the country. And then that's really when you start to drive some tangible value of ultimately the people that we're making a difference for, which is the people that turn up at the radiology clinics.
So actually then looking at people's travel patterns, how they're getting, where they're located, how far they have to travel, and then helping to make some decisions on, I think you mentioned where to put the next clinics, or where to, where they're best placed in terms of being most accessible.
There's two things, right? And these weren't necessarily outputs that we've seen, but they're examples of where our mind went to in the process. So firstly, how do you know that your business processes are working if you can't necessarily just visualize them? So an example would be, if you can see referrers traveling far too much distance, when you know there's a clinic that's closer, that may be a business process that's broken. So you can visualize that and just make some sense of the data. And that's just operational efficiency. The second one is, being in the private sector, the productivity of the machinery and the investments that the businesses make in MRI and CT scans and everything. Keeping the uptime of the machines high and the utilization high, with the right clinicians on time and resource to do it is absolutely fundamental to the throughput of the system. And we can identify and predict when volume's going to hit the system and resource accordingly. Therefore, throughput can go through, patients get seen quicker, referrals get answered quicker, and that's a part of reducing massive amounts of waste, which can be leveraged from just seeing your data. So yeah, all in all, a lot of people ask me, well, what questions are you asking of the data? And we almost come the opposite. Get the data and then start to ask it the questions, and then you'll then ask more questions on the back of the insight. So you can't really enter these projects with, I need all the answers. Actually, the data will provide the questions to you when you start to just realize that, okay, would it be great to understand why the winter of 2015 is different from the winter of 2016? Oh, it's because the freezing, it didn't reach freezing point at any point. Or there was a really big storm that came in, and therefore, a load more legs got broken that year. So,
That's all fascinating stuff, and it's really useful. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll be talking to Lloyd's more as well in terms of the overall cloud direction for the group. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And the presentations and slides are going to be available on the HiNZ website for people to view the whole one. So
well, thank you.
Again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.